What is up, team? Welcome back to the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. I'm Pat Kane, that's Cole Ladshaw, and St. John's 25-26 season is underway. Just earlier this afternoon, they beat Towson 73-63 in an exhibition match, an exhibition that was maybe closer than some St. John's thought going in. Cole and myself both think it was a benefit to St. John's to play a close game like this in an exhibition match, to test yourself early, see what you got to work on, and get out of there with a win. So some good positives there. Cole, your thoughts on this Saturday, October 18th, seeing St. John's play basketball?
They had us in the first half, not going to lie. I was sweating it out there a little bit. But like you mentioned, I think it was a great exhibition. Obviously, great to come out with a win, but a perfect team to play against in a complete styles clash. Like they wanted to slow the ball down, slower, slowest, 300th pace of play, I think, last year. A complete antithesis to what we are and what we're going to want to do. Get the ball, run and gun. Whoever gets the ball defensively off the rebound or a make, push it up the court, go. So they really slowed us down. Great to see the team turn around and play a really good second half. Some interesting things that I'm sure we'll talk about. Spacing didn't look particularly great in the first half. Did get to see our triple towers line up in the second half. Did get to see a different triple towers than we probably expected with Ruben Prey out there instead of Zuby. That really seemed to spark us in the second half. But all in all, just great to see St. John's basketball. Great to see the good guys get a W. Great to see the number 5 next to our name. Just can't wait for the season to start, dude.
So I'm not sure. I might have to go back and check this, and I will watch the replay of the game. I don't think it had the 5 to start the game. I think
eventually
they
switched
and
over.
then they added it. It's like someone's like pointed out to, hey, St. John's, we are preseason number 5. Let's get that market out there a little bit more.
Exhibition for everybody, even including the people on the broadcast.
Tariq included, our guy. Anyway, Stan still kind of a slow first half. St. John's never really got fully in a flow offensively. Did miss some early open looks. I turned the TV on right as Ian Jackson airballed a good look from 3 in the corner. And then some bumbling of passes. Couldn't really get our hands around completely on the basketball around the basket early. I thought missed some opportunities. And then credit to Towson, who did make some tough shots on the other end. But they were up 29-21 heading in that first half. You mentioned the big lineups, and if you're a fan of this podcast, Cole is a huge proponent of the huge lineups, and St. John's does have some options this year with the forwards they have. We did not see for any minutes in the first half Mitchell and Hopkins on the court together, or Prey with a combination of 2 of those for that matter, to see 3 bigs on the court. In the second half, we saw that in bunches. We started the second half with the bigger lineup. Sannon went to the bench to start the second half, and then Jackson, Hopkins, and Zuby were in the front court. Early on in that second half, Zuby got pulled. Rough start for him. It wasn't like his start against Rutgers last year in his exhibition where he, started with a 30-point game and kind of put the world on notice. This year, a little bit slower start to an exhibition season. 0 for 6 to start the game. He gets pulled early in the second half. Prey comes in that big lineup. Mitchell, Hopkins, and Prey together really got the things moving on both ends of the ball, both ends of the court. Some easy baskets inside, big-to-big looks. I thought, surprisingly, the spacing looked better with those 3 out there. We got better looks for 3 for Jackson, for Sannon to get a couple looks in the second half. And that really changed the game from being down 9 to building up a lead in the second half, almost exclusively with some combination of 3 bigs out there. Cole, your early thoughts on the triple big lineup?
I love it. I love the triple towers. To your point, I think we had talked about previously when discussing those 3 guys being on the court at the same time together of what the spacing would look like, of how that could potentially muck up the offensive end with not being able to space it out correctly with 3 big guys clogging up the paint together. But the spacing offensively was much worse in the first half. I thought we looked really good with the 3 bigs out there, even when it was Ruben along with Dillon and Bryce Hopkins. Thought Ruben passed the ball very well. He had a great backdoor cut by Dillon Mitchell that he hit for a nice layup. One of the things we'll get to eventually is point guard play and whether Rick even believes in point guard existing in modern basketball anymore. But I don't know how sustainable it is to have 13 of your 16 total assists come from Ruben, Dillon Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, and Zuby Ejiofor. I don't know that I love that. And your guard's not really sharing the sugar as much. But I thought those three guys, Zuby, who then picked up a little bit later in the game. Obviously, we know what Zuby's going to give us this season. We probably expect him to be named Big East preseason player of the year this week at Big East Media Day. But I thought Ruben, Dillon Mitchell, and Bryce Hopkins together on the court looked fantastic and really sparked that run that really turned the game around when we were down 10 points early in the second half. I think they went on 11-1 run very fast after Ruben came into the game. I thought they looked great together.
Yeah, and defensively, you could see the size difference with having an extra big body out there and help on the boards, and
Dillon Mitchell's ability to switch defensively. I mean, I think he was guarding a point guard at times there early when those three guys got together on the court.
Yeah, I loved what I saw from Mitchell today. Both sides of the court, making things happen in transition, an early pass up ahead, flying weak side help, switching defensively like you noted. Early leader in the clubhouse for Pat's favorite player of the season. Dillon Mitchell gets it after game one. Anyway, the other Dillon, let's turn our attention to Dillon Darling, point guard transfer. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. He didn't take a single shot from the field today, coming on the heels of a 20-point season, point per game season where he had the ball in his hands and was, really the primary force, both scoring and distributing for his team. Today, he really looked to play the part of a backup, distribute, take care of the ball, although a few turnovers in that first half role. Your thoughts on your opening impression from Dillon Darling?
Yeah, I mean, again, I mentioned the bigs having really all the assists that we had today and questioning how big of a concern that would be. I think Dillon had 2 assists today, 3 turnovers. You made the point of not taking any shots. I think a bunch of the guards are still trying to find their fit. I think Ian Jackson is trying to understand his role. That'll come as the season goes on. Same thing with Jason Sand and Dillon Darling as well. I think, again, there's a lot of spacing issues with the guard. One of the things that pops to my mind is that steal that Dillon Darling got, and him and Ian Jackson have a 2-on-1 fast break. I thought Dillon could have either pulled up and, it looked like he maybe was thinking going floater and then tried to pass it and ended up turning the ball over. I think probably some of that's on Ian Jackson. Probably should have ran more to the edge there and set a little bit more spacing, make the defender commit instead of just being able to take the 2 guys with the 1 defender. But that'll come. It's all about guys learning to play together, and that's what an exhibition is for. Ideally, I think if what are we going to get from Isaiah Sellers as potentially a starting point guard, or, again, is Rick going to play this just positionless basketball, no real true point guard, no real guy who's going to set the offense and walk the ball up the court every single possession. We're more going to be running and gunning, whoever gets the ball go. Is Isaiah Sellers really going to be a true 1? Is Ian Jackson really going to be more of a shooting guard playing off ball? I think if that's what we're going to go with and have a guy like Isaiah who is also looking to score along with initiating for others, I think then you really need Dillon Darling coming off the bench to be a real true point guard. And I think that'll come with time. Ideally don't want a negative turnover to assist ratio like he had today, sure. But I think it'll come. I think he looked good defensively. Looks like a dog, who has energy and gets in people's jock straps. So I like seeing that.
This just popped in my head, and I don't want to take stabs at the guy who's at the door, but speaking of Simeon Wilcher, who's gone, or Dillon Darling potentially, who could have been that, backup point guard. And I'm always interested in how a guy can impact the game without scoring. And Dillon Darling at 6 foot barely, and a scrappy guy, was around more basketballs, rebounding steals in crowds and traffic, putting bodies on guys boxing out. He had 1 big box out on a big that led to a foul for us going the other way. That's the type of stuff I want to see impacting from a guy who's not scoring the basketball. And too many times last year, Simeon just couldn't find his game scoring. And then that other part was just empty calories out in the court. So not to take shots on the guy out the door. And I hope Simeon has a good season down in Texas. But I think it's a really good sign that a guy who was shooting, scoring, passing at an extremely high rate was willing so far to take a back seat and set the table there. And I think as he gets more comfortable, maybe some scoring will come. We should point out, though, we had a big lead late, 12, 14 points, and they put some pressure on us. Dillon was on the floor for, if not all of it, most of that time. It wasn't just him who struggled, but St. John struggled, giving up a 6, 8 point run late when that pressure tightened. So that's something to take note on. It wasn't all flowers for the backcourt tonight. There was some warning signs and some stuff they're going to have to definitely get better at.
I think if we go back to the front court, the thing I was most excited to see, though, today was Bryce Hopkins getting back on the court after 2 years of not really playing for all intents and purposes. Obviously, There's going to be a little rust as he gets used to being back on the floor with players around him and getting used to this new team. But I thought he looked tremendous. His ability to get the ball wherever he wants him on the court, dribbling off the perimeter, taking it to the rim, pulling up for his jump shot. I thought he looked really good. That explosive dunk there at the end, actually, first explosive, the one-handed dunk attempt that he missed, and then, getting the ball back and throwing it down two-handed. It's good to see him have that explosiveness after those leg injuries. I'm really excited for Bryce. I think he has potential to be an all Big East player this year. Just a great game from him, leading the team in points, tied for the lead in rebounds. I think led the team in assists today. Just great all around game, and awesome to see him on the court. Awesome to see him coming off the bench and have that good a game too.
Yeah, he looked healthy. He looked bouncy out there. Slim. Yeah, was really the only guy in the first half for us that could get some easy baskets, could get us going. Other than those two solid drives and finishes by our guy Lefty, who those two plays looked nice, had some issues on the defensive end, didn't get in the court on the second half. So interested on Rick's thoughts there. Rick played 11 guys in the first 8 minutes of the basketball game. So you could see he was trying to get everybody out there, test some combinations, and maybe see where everybody's wind was at. You mentioned Bryce. Let's take a look at the box score. He did lead us in scoring. Only player in double figures. He had 13 points, 5 of 9 shooting. We had 6 other guys between 6 and 9 points. So spreading the ball well. Didn't have particularly good shooting nights from the perimeter. 4 for 17 from 3 overall. But you could see in the second half when we do get stops, we do get rebounds, deflections. This team will get out in space, get to the basket, and open up some stuff from the perimeter for guys like Sannon, Sellers, and Jackson to get some good looks in transition. And hopefully, as we get more familiar with each other in the half court, the spacing improves, and we'll get those looks as well in the half court sets.
But you got great minutes from Deku, who led the team in plus minus today. Was plus 15. Just behind him was Dillon Mitchell, was plus 14. Awesome to see one of the two captains come off the bench and be able to. I think Rick will probably rely on him, especially early in the season, for some spot minutes off the bench. Obviously he's played with him for so long. You can trust him, senior kid. Dillon Mitchell, you mentioned previously, I thought played tremendously. I totally agree with you. He's going to be a Red Storm Rapid Reaction podcast favorite. Just impacts the game so many different ways. His ability to defensively. One of the things I was really surprised seeing that I wasn't quite aware is he seems to be a really underrated passer. I thought he had some great looks. I think he led the team in assists. No, he had 3 assists, so he was up there.
Zuby, and
Bryce.
Hopkins had 4. And you mentioned the Bryce missed dunk. Well, I'm just going to point out that would have been Darling's 3rd assist. Would have made it 3 assists, 3 turnovers. He starts looking a little better for him.
You think the 3-point shooting's probably the biggest thing that was a concern today. 4 of 17. You got to think.
I'll point to my.
Go ahead.
I'll point to my biggest. I actually look at that as like a good thing. Like if becomes a habit, it's not a good thing, obviously. Sure. But I don't look at those. What do we got? 1 for 3 from Sannon, 0 for 2 from Sellers, 1 for 4 from Jackson.
Exactly.
So they're 2 for 9, and some of those are really good looks. I think we'll take our chances as that improving. What I thought was my biggest surprise, and what I'm sure Rick's not happy about, and I'll pull up this over here so we can take a look. Look at that offensive rebound and look at the points off turnovers, total rebounds, things that we really, hung our hat on last year. They out-rebounded us on the offensive boards. They out-rebounded us on total boards. and they out-rebounded us points off turnovers. So, ways we're going to win games against teams that are in the higher echelon of college basketball is winning those areas, being the team that's grittier in the paint. Zuby, Mitchell, Hopkins killing it on offensive rebounds. Certainly not, seceding to the point or where the other team's beating us outright on that end. And then, Rick Pitino loves his deflections. He loves getting in the other end and scoring in transition. So points off turnovers, I would be surprised if it's not something that we're taking towards our advantage for most games this year.
Yeah, I think Zuby only had 2 offensive rebounds today. Averaged 4 and change last year. You got to think that number regresses closer to the mean. Talking about same thing with the 3-point shooting, like Ian Jackson was a 39% 3-point shooter last year, goes 1 for 4 today. Like that's going to get better. Isaiah Sellers obviously had that tremendous performance in the red and white scrimmage that Dave and Clan were reporting on. Goes 0 for 2 today. I got to think he's going to shoot better than that from deep. Yeah, but I totally agree with your point. I thought we gave up way too many offensive rebounds. The points off of turnovers is ugly too. I'm sure Rick's going to be chewing him out over that. But good that you can walk out of an exhibition game with a win, have so many teaching points, like we talked about earlier, a completely different style matchup to where they were trying to slow us down so much and make us work against what we would ideally like to do. I thought it was a great learning experience. Excited to see what we do against Michigan next Saturday. That'll be the real litmus test. And I think a good style mismatch exhibition game and then a real good top tier exhibition game against Michigan really should have you well prepared for that early Alabama game that we have coming up so soon. So schedule gets tough soon.
And good to get our feet wet early at the Garden, get used to those bright lights. Michigan played in an exhibition this weekend against Cincinnati. They were missing some of their big guys. I'm not sure if they'll be back in time for our matchup against them. But yeah, it will be really good to see a top 10 team, see what we've got there, see what carries over from this game. Maybe if we get some, better shooting performances, how that spacing might look with the smaller lineup. If we can compete with that lineup for long stretches against a big team like Michigan, it'll be interesting to see. I will point out it to me, but no surprise, Ayo is a guy that Rick trusts, and I think he will be that 9th guy he goes to after whoever the 6th man is. We'll settle on it, but then you've got Darling and Prey, we're going to be in the mix off the bench, and then I think it's going to be Ayo with Lefty and Kelvin, bringing up the rear in terms of 10, 11 spot minutes. Just early thoughts, and I think tonight in that second half, you can kind of see how that would play out in Rick's eyes. But he's got a task and a challenge in getting all these guards and wings comfortable and finding the right balance and keeping everybody happy.
So let me gauge your panic meter regarding regarding the point guard position, the distributor, the ball handler. Obviously, Ian Jackson didn't play a ton of minutes today. Rick left him glued for the majority of the second half to the bench. Isaiah Sellers seems to be his first unit starting point guard, which I don't think any of us would have expected. I thought I heard Dave say on the most episode of the Ire and the Storm podcast that Isaiah Sellers does have point guard experience from his time in AAU, which, Pat, I'm sure you can speak to how great the defense is in AAU. So that fills me with tons of confidence. So Ian, the experiment obviously isn't done already with him at point guard, but is that going to be more of a struggle early in the season with him being able to handle primary ball handling duties? Dillon Darling, is he ready? Obviously we talked about 3 turnovers to 2 assists today. Where are you? 10 being, we're in deep doo-doo, and 1 being no concern at all. Where's your panic meter on the point guard position?
I'm closer to the bottom half of that, maybe a 4. I think maybe this is a good and bad thing. On those minutes where Darling wasn't on the court and it was Sellers who was the point guard, you could have told me it was Jackson. You could have told me it was Sandin a little bit, but between Jackson and Sellers, you couldn't tell who the point guard was. And is that a good thing? Who knows? Is it a bad thing? Who knows? But I think that lends itself to make the non-point guard situation less of an issue. So I think between Sellers and Jackson picking up the slack when they're on the court, I think that'll be fine with the other good piece we have around them. And I've got confidence. Me, I'm a little bit higher on Darling than a lot. I think he's going to get better and better, and I think he's going to be an asset in that second half, second unit as a backup point guard, getting close to 20-ish minutes a night.
Yeah, I think I obviously you got Rick Pitino. Like I'm not at that 10 level. Like I'm never going to be super concerned. Rick can figure it out. He's the best coach of all time. I'm probably a little higher. I'd say maybe 5 or absolute worst case scenario 6. Against a team like Towson, I want my starting point guard, if you want to call that Isaiah Sadler, and my backup point guard, Dillon Darling, to have more than 2 assists. Like, I don't think that's fantastic. Look, I don't think, like I mentioned before, 16 total team assists, 13 coming from 4 of your big men. Like, I would prefer to see, somebody, one of the guards distributing the rock a little bit better. I think, again, first exhibition game. It's gonna come with time. We got Rick Pitino. Like, these guys will figure it out. But concerns, something we obviously pointed out in the off season, and now here we are in game 1, and it's already becoming a question. But I think there's plenty of time to work this out. We've got tremendous shooters that anybody holding the ball, distributing, is going to be able to find on the perimeter and pick up some assists. I think we'll be okay. But it's just interesting, to something to point out after only game 1.
Yeah, I think those concerns are completely fair. I think a lot of our fans, a lot of St. John's fans will share those concerns. That's what makes this podcast work. Till next Saturday, bigger test, Michigan. We'll see. We'll get some of these questions answered. For Sir Dominic Pointer, who I can't stop to think about every time I see Joe Son standing on the court. It looks to me like it's Sir Dom out there. Completely different offensive players, but nonetheless, shouts to him. For Pat Kane, that's Cole Latshaw. This is the Redstone Rapid Reaction Podcast. Peace.